Welcome everyone who is joining. We're going to give folks just a couple of minutes to join, and the chat is open. So if you're here, let us know who you are and where you're from. I'm hoping to see some old and new friends here today. I'm Kristen, and so happy you're joining for this webinar. Oh, hey, Kim. Oh, hi, Annette. Daisy. Oh my gosh, Daisy, I just saw your what you all have done with Foster, and your numbers are completely insane. Amazing. Just talking about it yesterday. Hi, Jody. Oh yeah, of course. Hey everybody. Oh wow. It's great to see you all. Welcome. We're gonna get started pretty quickly because we have a lot to get through today. In the chat, if you would just say like sort of what you feel like your experience level with using AI is, like total beginner, experimenting, competent, like novice, however you feel like where we're at. I want to get an idea of where everybody in their room is at. Okay, a lot of beginners, cool. Oh, great, you bought the monthly ChatGPT, good job. That's gonna be a good starting point for folks today. All right, good, we have a lot of beginners in the room, that's great. So I gave a similar webcast a year ago in June of 2024, and at the time I quoted someone I learned a lot from, Ethan Mollick, who's at the Wharton School of Business, who said today's AI is the worst AI you'll ever use, and that has definitely proven to be true. If you know anything about my work, I'm an animal shelter consultant. I've run 3 large government shelters, but I am not an AI expert because no one is. It's all happening too quickly unless you're an actual developer. We are all learning at the same rate. And so this is an absolutely great time for you to be here. I started getting interested in AI both because it scared me a lot, and because I think there's just such tremendous potential to help animal shelters who always get left behind when technology happens. So we're going to cover a lot of ground today. Everything that we shared today will be available to you. We'll send it all in an email afterwards. I'm joined by my colleagues, Katie and Eliza, who work with me at Outcomes for Pets Consulting, who will be sharing links. And you can chat throughout if you have questions you want to make sure that we get to. If we don't get to things today, we will get to them. We will email you any responses, and we're here to help. I am just passionate about all of us learning how to use AI because there's so much it can do to save lives. And it reminds me a little bit of the moment before social media came on the scene. And some of you, tell me if you remember this. Do you remember the days when like you had to advertise dogs and cats at shelters in the newspaper, and you got like 4 spots to advertise, and you'd have their little pictures and it would say go to your local shelter? If you remember those days, that was right before we got social media, and social media came on the scene and it just changed everything for animals. I think that we could probably correlate the social media with an increase in life saving, if anybody has looked at that, but this is the same. So I'm going to start just by showing you, last time I did this, I played a song that AI wrote about animal shelters, and today we're going to do something a little bit different. So I'm going to be bobbling back and forth between sharing different AI platforms and sharing a presentation. If you need me to slow down, tell me. I have gotten faster and faster at talking because there's so much to share. So I'm going to try to slow down here and get into what is the most important stuff today. But if you have trouble seeing my screen, also let me know that too. But I want to share, just to start, one of my clients is Riverside County Department of Animal Services, and they're one of the most challenged shelters in the country, one of the largest, and they historically have had one of the highest or the highest euthanasia rate for cats, and a pretty high one for dogs too. And they have been doing incredible work this year. So our team working with them came in and made this little report just to show the increase in life saving. And this is just some basic data showing decrease in euthanasia, increase in life saving, and how they're doing in general. So did this report, and this morning as I was preparing for the webinar, I went into Google Gemini, and I'm gonna just go right back here. Okay, I went into Google Gemini. That's one of the LLMs. And I just uploaded the report and I simply said, generate an audio overview. So all I did was I fed it that report as a PDF and said, generate an audio overview. And I'm just going to play you just a minute or two of what came back to me.
So today we're looking at some really interesting stuff coming out of Riverside County.
Yeah, the Department of Animal Services, RCVS, we've got their report for the first 3 months of 2025.
And we're comparing it to the same time last year, 2024.
Exactly. And it's not just about crunching numbers, although we'll look at some. It's really about understanding the story, you know.
What's changing in animal welfare there? How are they improving things for the animals?
Right. Without getting like totally bogged down in statistics, we want the key takeaways.
And the big headline seems pretty positive right off the bat.
Definitely. Real progress in saving more lives.
Okay, so RCDAS, this is a pretty big operation we're talking about, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It's huge. They handle what, over 35,000 animals a year?
Wow.
Yeah, across 4 different locations. So scale is important here. Small changes can mean a lot of animals.
And it looks like they didn't do this entirely on their own. They had some help.
That's right.
So I wanted to share that just to give you an idea of where AI is at right now. That is just a simple use that a lot of folks struggle right now. You know, I listen to all my books on Audible. I'm having so much trouble paying enough attention to sit down and read. You can take any document, you can take an academic paper, you can do this. So that's just a use that you may not think of. And this is not using any application. It's just using one of the main large language models. And that's what we're going to get into today, is how to use those. And I think whoever said they had just upgraded to a paid version, when you are using one of the large language models, using the $20 a month, that's how much they typically are right now. Using the paid version will get you a lot of value. So whichever one you choose, just keep that in mind. So I'm going to share my screen one more time and we'll get right into it. Okay. So every so often, I just sort of test where we're at with visuals with the different LLMs. And the top visual is something that I made. I took a picture of myself and I asked ChatGPT to generate an image of me trying to figure out AI and looking frustrated, surrounded by pets. At night, I think I said late at night. So a year ago, that top image is the one I got. And today or yesterday, I asked it again. I said, take this first image. Here's the picture of me and create a more photorealistic version. And you can see the difference in the quality. While I admittedly look worse, I looked really great back then on ChatGPT. That has changed a little bit. But it's much more realistic. And so the quality of images has changed. It changes all the time. So much so that when I was doing this presentation, I was up late last night because the imagery's gotten even better since a month ago, the last time I created some documents. So, having said all that, AI is probably evil. Not probably, it is. It is scary. You are right to be worried about it. We all should be. There's a few reasons for that. I'm just going to touch on them. One are privacy concerns for ourselves and our clients. Rule number 1 is that you shouldn't tell AI anything you don't want to eventually be public. If you think of it that way, you'll be much more careful with it. So personal medical details, personnel information that identifies a person, things like that, you really don't want to use AI for, at least until we have some more clarity. There are some platforms that are more secure than others, but in general, you want to be careful about anything sensitive like that because of those concerns. And we're seeing, I just listened to a podcast called Scam Inc., which was just about the scam industry and how much it's growing and how much AI is going to help it grow. Their environmental impact, we don't even really understand yet, but we know it's massive. There are these server farms, and I included a picture of what that even looks like. But there are these giant buildings that just have servers to hold all of this data. They require a tremendous amount of water. They're often built in other countries where water for people to drink and animals to live is in short supply. They're pulling away from communities, pulling tremendous amount of resources away in places where people really can't afford that. So these things are going to continue to be problems and growing problems. Also, we've heard a lot about bias and manipulation. And if you do have questions and don't want to wait, I see some hands raised. If you could put them in the chat, because I want to just get through this and then promise we'll get to questions. But you've probably heard about the bias in AI. About 3 weeks ago, AI had an update where it just started flattering the heck out of everybody. And I fell for it. I was like, wow, AI really loves me. But it was just it was an update that caused it to tell you everything great about yourself. But it's not agreeing with you. As an LLM learns more about you, it will start to try to tailor content to you. And so it is not a person, and it doesn't have feelings, but it will start to potentially manipulate your feelings. So I'll talk more about how to mitigate for that. That is a threat. It's also going to displace jobs. The most vulnerable workers are people that do routine, repetitive tasks that can be automated. However, I feel pretty positive about this because animal shelters rely on people and will continue to. So relative to other industries, we're pretty secure. And then finally, AI does pose security threats that the likes of which we just have never seen. I'm not going to get into this today, but there is a wonderful website called AI 2027. It was written by folks who have been really remarkably predictive in the past, and they write kind of what they think is going to happen with AI on a global scale. And it's definitely concerning, but it's a great read if you want to dive deep into that stuff. So I wanted to start with all of those because there are some caveats to all the cool stuff that everybody should be aware of. But now the fun stuff. This is generally what we're going to talk about today. At the end of this, we're going to announce I'm doing a 4-part course for people that want to do a deeper dive and really learn how to use AI in a more sophisticated way. But today we're going to cover a lot of the basics. Even if you did attend my first session a year ago, there's a ton of updates. This was a little sign throughout the presentation. I'm just going to share some of the work products that I've really enjoyed, but this is a sign to put on a kennel. Kennel signs drive me nuts. They're terrible and they don't help us get animals adopted. So I love taking crappy signs and making them better using AI. So this is what we're going to talk about. Some of the terminology that you want to be aware of, there is a ton of terminology, most of it you don't need to worry too much about, but these are some of the main definitions. And I'm gonna start with large language models, LLMs. You'll hear a lot about these. These are kind of the starting points for anyone that wants to learn AI. And they're advanced AI systems. They can understand and generate human language and do so much more. We're going to get into the specific LLMs, but that's what that term means. So ChatGPT is an LLM. A year ago, there were 3 or 4 models, large front, like top of the line models. Now there are more than a dozen. So they are getting faster and there are more of them every day. Training data is information that teaches the models. If you've heard anything about like people's intellectual property being stolen, their songs they write, the art they make, that's training data. It's because their stuff's getting pulled in and used as data to train the models. So, and that you can change your settings so that your data is not pulled into training data. For me, I want mine to be because I want it to be pulling in the different best practice documents I create, but some things I really don't. So I'll show you how to change those settings. Machine learning is just when computers start to actually learn and change over time without us saying directly what we want them to do. And GPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. That doesn't matter. You probably won't ever remember that. I always forget it. But they're just customized LLMs. So it's when somebody takes ChatGPT and customizes it for a certain reason. This is one of my best friend's dogs she adopted from my shelter, who I love dearly and really just felt like turning into a unicorn. So there are some basic guidelines, and this is maybe one of the most important slides of the day, but if you keep waiting, you're going to be starting further behind. So this is a great time to start. When I started messing with AI, it wasn't very user-friendly, and so I had to just do so much reading and learning to even use it. That's changed a lot. Ethan Mollick, who I will quote over and over again, says the secret isn't waiting for the perfect AI, it's diving in and discovering what these tools can accomplish. And what he recommends is spending 10 hours with each tool or a couple of sleepless nights to just learn how to use that tool and learn what it does. And you learn by experimenting. I have ADHD. I get bored so easily, and LLMs have been just so wonderful for me because they let my brain expand and think in entirely new ways, and they work with me to do that. So, but you've got to just use them to learn that. There's not like a training manual you need to read. When you're trying to create work products, you want to start in areas where you know when it's wrong. So I love rock hounding. I go rock hunting all the time, but I am not an expert. So if I wanted to identify rocks and make sure that I was right, and I used ChatGPT or another LLM to do that, I wouldn't know when it was wrong. But if I asked ChatGPT to write a protocol for how to start a foster program for dogs, I would know where it got it wrong. I would know the little nuances, the words that might be missing. So start with something you know so that you can see where its strengths are and where its weaknesses are. A lot of people try to prompt their LLM or ChatGPT just by saying, write me an email. And that is much less effective than starting with a draft, giving it the draft and saying, help me improve this for clarity and make the tone more friendly. You always want to give it examples, reference points. When you don't do that, it's starting from scratch. It's a little bit like if you had an executive assistant and you said to them, hey, write me an email. You don't know what they would do with that, right? They could do they could write a million different kinds of emails, but if you gave them a starting point and told them to edit it, they'd be more likely to be successful. And you do want to talk to your LLM the same way you would talk to an assistant. So a lot of folks, when they start, they're too vague or they don't give very specific instructions, and then they get frustrated that they don't get what they want and stop using it. And you have to push through that, because once you get through that, you can see where you need to tweak how you're asking it to do things. And you always have to check the work. There was this really infamous thing that happened with an M dash. And M dash is those really long dashes, but ChatGPT is obsessed with M dashes. I don't know why, but it puts them everywhere in its writing. And so a few weeks ago, people started to catch on that, like, if you saw a document with a lot of M dashes, chances are ChatGPT wrote it. I had done a couple of documents with ChatGPT and I was embarrassed. I went back and was like, oh, I didn't even see that. So you do want to check its work, not just for things like that, but it will make mistakes. And you're going to look at your work product, you're gonna be like, yep, looks great. But you need to read things carefully. I actually read my work products out loud to myself, because I catch when it writes something, I catch things when I read it out loud. On the left, you'll see that is a screenshot of ChatGPT. There are different models, and knowing how to use those different models is helpful. But the first one on the left you see is ChatGPT 4.0. This one is great for everyday use. This is part of the, I believe this is still part of the paid subscription. And this is what most people use all the time. But this O3 is also really helpful for things like creative writing, writing more sensitive documents like an email or a policy. And then there are a couple other models that can be useful. So each LLM has different models, and unfortunately, this is all being made very quickly by developers who don't know that none of us know what the hell any of this means. That is going to change because everyone's complaining about it. But for now, know that you need to pay attention to what model you're using because you get very, very different responses. And we're going to go into ChatGPT in just a few minutes, but I wanted to point that out. Okay, you've heard me say LLM a million times now, but here's the skinny on what they are. So a few of the ones you may have heard of are ChatGPT. It's a great all-around model. Microsoft Copilot, which if you are tied to Microsoft Office, you'll most likely use that when you're in Microsoft. I haven't used that one very much. Claude, this one is by Anthropic. I use Claude a lot for writing. It's more realistic sounding, although this stuff is changing all the time. So that's true today, may not be tomorrow. And I find it to be really thoughtful and creative when I'm trying to generate ideas. And this one is known to have better privacy. It doesn't use your data to train on. So this is one that if you're concerned about that, you might consider. Google Gemini, I'm just starting to use, but it's making moves to be one of the biggest, most successful of the LLMs. And it does things that others don't. I haven't gotten it to be as helpful for graphics. ChatGPT is still the best. But that recording I shared at the beginning, that was Google Gemini. So it's worth staying up to date on what is happening with it. And then two that I really haven't messed around with very much are xAI, the Grok, that's Elon Musk's, and DeepSeek, which is a Chinese platform that came onto the scene more recently, and I've just heard great stuff about, but I haven't used that one very much either. So we're going to focus on the several that I've used the most, but if you play around with any of the ones I haven't, I'd love to hear more about your experience. And this little chart just shows you, and again, you'll have this presentation, but this chart shows you more about what each model does, or what each LLM and the best model does. When you're prompting your LLM, this made me laugh because it's so true. Some of the stuff that you get back is pretty wild. But when you are prompting it, all prompting means is how you ask ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude to do something. You want to be specific about what you're asking, and you want to give it a role and responsibility. So for instance, I write a lot of documents for government. And so I'll say, you're a local government advisor, help me update this document, amend or edit this document so that it utilizes language commonly understood in local government. You want to provide examples. So if I'm writing a memo and I wrote one really great memo, I'll say, help me make this memo I wrote better. Like I have this new one, help me make this better, and use this example as the example of what a great memo looks like. That really helps you. You also want to work in steps. It's a lot more effective to ask it to do small pieces of work well than big pieces of work, though that's changing and it kind of depends on the topic. If you are struggling and you ever want to quit, pretend that it's your assistant and you're mad at it and talk to it that way, and you'll find that you'll be much more successful because it does need specific instructions, just like an assistant would. And then finally, when you're starting, work through a problem until you get to the right answer, because it's in working through the problem that you get to that. I went to jewelry school a couple of years ago and learned silversmithing and metalsmithing, and I spent like an entire summer just destroying copper. That's what you learn on, it's a cheap metal. And I would spend like 10 hours making something and then destroy it. And it was so frustrating. But my teacher was always like, you have learned so much in the destruction of that copper. And it's totally true of AI as well. You've got to put in that time. and mess up. And once you get to that end, it's really satisfying because you've learned so much. So, okay, we've been largely in a theoretical realm, so we're gonna get into like real life now. How do you use AI in animal shelters? This was, I just did this morning. I loved pound puppies as a kid. And this, I took a shelter dog and I said, turn her into a pound puppy. This is a great example of something you could put on a kennel, of a shelter dog that's maybe having trouble getting adopted. But that's what's so cool about it is I just thought of that this morning, and you can just sort of dream up ideas and do them. We saw, if you've seen everybody made themselves into like toys about a month ago. Did any of you see that? And it was like every single person did that. And so I was like, well, what can I do differently? So I started making people into garbage pail kids, which were like around when I was a kid. The sky's the limit. So you can be as creative as you want. And every animal shelter can do totally different things. It really is. It is sort of like limitless. One of my favorite things to do when I have time and I'm like too tired to work is to ask it to turn animals and animal shelters into like old cartoons in certain styles. So you can make like a Mad TV style cartoon or a Mad Magazine style cartoon, or you can make like a any sort of style of cartooning, vintage or not, you can usually make a shelter pet into. That's a fun one to try. Okay, so let's get practical because we all actually have to go to work when we're not making cool pictures. So it is great for improving written documents. So in this image that you see here, I saw that on the LA Animal Services webpage. Hi, Annette, I'm so glad you're here. I was gonna send this to you, I just haven't gotten to it yet. They have a lot of bunnies and guinea pigs, like a lot. And the web page for it, it really just talks about responsible ownership of bunnies and guinea pigs, like what you need to do to own them, but it doesn't really market them. And so I asked it, I said, can you take this web page? And all I did was give the link. Can you take this web page and can you make this an improved web page to help market bunnies and guinea pigs? And it did. It gave me this web page draft. And so I'm reading this, meet your perfect small companion, why rabbits and guinea pigs make wonderful companions. This is a great example because it gives me a great starting point, but there's some things in here I don't love and some things that I would probably change. Like at one point it says that there's no smell to them, which just isn't true. So I really like what it gave me, but I'm going to use that and I'm going to work with it. But it's great for things like that because writing your website can take a really long time. And if there's a website you love, you can ask it to rewrite all your web pages in the style of, like, I love Jacksonville Humane's website. I might say, write my pages in that style. Memos, boring documents that you have to write, it's great for that. And you can tailor it to boards, you can tailor it to management staff, to government officials. Any public facing documents like adoption applications, it does a really good job with that. I do actually think it's biased slightly towards open adoptions, which is great, but it may not be. That could just be me, so you should find out. But again, you want to check those because it'll put some weird questions in there. News releases, super fast for writing news releases and newsletters. So that is like one simple thing to start with. Like every time you're having to generate a document, use AI to help you. And that alone, if you just do that, that's a good starting point. But it's good for bigger decisions too. This is a community needs assessment that I just did for the Humane Society of Ventura County. And I didn't really know the community that well, but I needed to make recommendations on where they should prioritize like community pet support services and where they should prioritize expanding adoptions. This is a summary and it gives me these, so it gives me priority service areas for low cost free services and then priority adoption facility locations. But it also gave me about a 10-page report justifying why it was giving these and citing all of its sources. When I took this to the board, they were able to validate that they completely agreed with these recommendations. But this is a good example of how it can, like, I'm about to do this for Riverside County as well. historically, these things would have cost a lot of money and taken a lot of time, but they're so much faster now that we have AI. So that's a fun one to do in any community. Like you can say, I was just gonna ask because we're working in LA City, and in LA City, it is just this vast network of places. And I'm gonna ask it to sort of map out all the community pet resources and see how that compares to what they already have. So you can do a lot, you can look at bigger picture stuff as well. So animal shelters, because I consult, I go to a lot of shelters where they just stopped having meetings because they were so miserable. Like weekly meetings are just like, everyone's like, ugh, I can't believe I have to go to another weekly meeting. And so I wanted to ask AI, how do we get better meeting agendas? And so my prompt was, my animal shelter manager meetings are uninspiring, the staff just aren't engaged. Help me think of ideas to make them more engagement focused, so staff are excited to attend. So it gave me a lot of ideas. Some of them weren't very useful, some of them were. If I were working right now, what I would do is I would pick the 3 or 4 that really resonate with me. So I really like the test kitchen theme, create a test kitchen time to practice and role play difficult scenarios. I might take that one and flesh that out a bit more. I like how they suggest replacing traditional updates with pre-meeting visual dashboards, because everyone hates the update roundtable. I mean, I don't know if anyone listens to that thing. Everyone does it. I don't know if anyone listens. So I loved this idea. I liked the 15-minute hot seat sessions where one department takes focus. So a lot of these I really like. Some of them I might not like them all, but if I don't like any of them, I can say, I don't like any of these. Can you give me 10 more? Or how about 100 more? And so it can just keep generating ideas to help you get where you want. You can also, if you're really bold, Dubert has been an industry leader. If you don't know about Dubert, you should go check out their website. They do amazing work under the guidance of Chris Roy. Chris, if you're here, hello. And they have just created a chatbot, which is accessible to shelters, that helps automate your service. So it automates those frequently asked questions. So check that out. I just learned about it the other day, right in ahead of this. So I'm still learning, but there's a great webpage on it that gives you lots of information. But what that does is if you have your own chatbot, it just responds to things that you train it on. So if I want it to train only on my website and what's on there, I can do that. And then people can say, what are your hours? Rather than having to search around your website, which surprisingly, it's really hard to find people's hours and locations on many websites. But that's a good one to know about. You can just be a better writer, and you can improve your communication in particular ways. I just did this. I had written an intake diversion script for Riverside, and I liked it, but it was a little too complicated. And so I asked Claude to improve it. And it did. So it took my original script, which is pretty wordy, and it gave me a script that's much more usable for the staff. Like we could take this and put it on the wall. We could train staff with it. The next step I may say is let's create a training for staff to help them practice some scenarios based on this script. But it can just help you clarify and streamline your writing. I always write way too much. It helps shorten all of my writing so that people actually read it. It can also help you with more sensitive communication. I can't stand it when people put negative, mean, passive-aggressive stuff into email, but they do all the time. So you can just put your email in and say, hey, if this sounds like I have a tone, can you change that? And it will. You can have it help you with any HR performance management documentation, which can get really tricky, and you want to make sure your wording's correct. You can ask your LLM to be an HR expert and help you with that. The one caveat is, of course, you don't want to have people's identifying information in the content you feed it. And you can do more creative writing and really think about how do you want to talk about the animals in your care? What do you want to make sure the ethic is for when you're talking about them? So you can get a lot better consistency if your staff starts using it. This one is big. Providing better vet care. I think that this feels big because we have this massive veterinary shortage, and some tasks that are done now can be automated, but more importantly, vets working alongside AI may actually be able to diagnose faster, be able to diagnose better, and we're seeing this in human medicine. There's a recent study showing that AI working alongside a doctor actually did better than either AI or a doctor working alone. So that combined partnership between AI and the doctor was the most effective. The AVMA has gotten this loud and clear. They are holding discussions about how AI is going to change the veterinary industry because it really could help alleviate some of the crises we're facing. And also for shelter vets, getting faster, quicker diagnoses, care plans, doing standing orders. There's a lot of ways it can be used, because the thing with AI is that it's pulling in all of the information in the world, all the information that it has is pulling in. So if a vet gets an animal where they haven't seen that condition before, they can put those symptoms in, they can describe what's happening, and AI is going to pull in anything about that and give them information, give them feedback on that. So it's quicker than looking through a textbook, which is what a lot of my colleagues who are veterinarians still do. This is a simple one, but what a great, I love this. Eliza, if you're watching, this is a sign that Eliza made at LA Animal Services. And at the time, we just had to get something printed for the shelter there. But we knew that it could be a little bit more eye-catching. And so instead of having to pay a designer to figure that out, I just put in a prompt and said, help me make this sign more visually appealing and eye-catching. And the first thing it came back with was this flyer over here, which I think clearly it likes Petco Love Lost because it kind of copied Petco Love Lost style. But this could be improved upon, but it gives us an idea. I would probably take this and ask some more specific questions, but it gives us a quick avenue to get a new sign designed and printed, and you can get these printed just like you can anything. So that can be really, really helpful and save a lot of time and money. Here's some quick visuals I created. So these are not super fancy. I wanted to print them to show you how easy it can be to make quick visuals, because I work in it, you know, when I'm in LA and I'm walking through 500 kennels, and the dogs, they all are just dogs. It's really hard to tell the difference between them. You can use AI to bring attention to a certain dog. That dog on the left was a dog at LA who I just saw had like the most soulful, beautiful eyes. And I just made him a quick little flyer. Any volunteer can do this. You can provide parameters for these, stick them on the kennel. And now that dog has some special attention brought to it. So that was super fast way to get that dog noticed when it might not otherwise be. Another great use is if you see a flyer or you see a campaign that you like in another shelter, you can tailor that to your own shelter. So I took this from one of the shelters I used to run, Pima Animal Care Center. It was a foster flyer that was tailored to Pima. And I said, can you unbrand this from Pima Animal Care Center and just make me a version of this that anyone can use? And it did. It gave me this version. And again, I'd probably improve on the design a little bit, but it was a quick and easy way to get that work product. And then finally, just a quick announcement for an adoption event. We all need to be doing more adoption events. AI, the LLMs used to be really bad at writing. You would put in words and it would misspell them, and you probably saw that, but it's so much better now. So you can make a quick adoption flyer really easily. And this, I just took some puppies that I fostered and said, put them behind bars in a cage and let's make a flyer, and I did that. And so it's really quick. These products take maybe 30 seconds versus the couple of hours they would take for a designer to do them. If you are a designer and you're here, never fear, because your life is about to get a lot more interesting and fun. Designers are still critically important. There's just this human touch that AI cannot bring, but designers will have to learn to work in partnership with AI. You can just brainstorm ideas. This one I did last night. I wrote down the exact prompts that I did. So I just said, give me 10 great ideas for an adoption event focused on kittens. And I liked the first 10, but I didn't love them. And I said, give me 10 more. And it gave me 10 more. And I said, give me 5 that are geared towards adopting pairs of kittens. So I got some of those. And from this list, I decided to pick cat flicks and cuddles because I thought that idea was really cute. And I asked it to write a description and a graphic for it. So here's what I got back. And so the description was great. It was so funny and clever. And the flyer is really clever too. I love how they mimic the style of Netflix. It's like Netflix and chill. I loved the idea itself. I think this sounds so fun. So it's Cat Flicks and Cuddles, a kitten adoption movie night. It says, this kitten season, skip the drama and adopt some. Join us for Cat Flicks and Cuddles, the coziest adoption event of the year where you can binge on cuteness and cat-themed cinema. And it says, whether you're looking to adopt or need a serotonin boost, Cat Flicks and Cuddles is your feel-good double feature. BYO blanket and let the kitten pile begin when we're admission. And it's just, what a great idea. And this may not be feasible for your shelter, or there might be a part of it that you're like, wait a minute, what about disease? You can just ask it that, like, we're gonna need to keep kittens separated. How would you frame that? You can just ask ChatGPT to answer that question for you. So this is like one of a million examples, but when we go back to the different ideas, there's a lot you could pursue here. The Great Gatsby adoption gala I thought was cute. So there's a lot of ideas you could pursue, and anything that you need ideas for, just asking it to brainstorm with you it's fun, and there's going to be something in there that gets your attention. And that's what I mean by, as someone with ADHD, I love having that new thing catch my attention, and then I can take it and run with it. I'm gonna unshare, but I want to announce, and we're going to share the information about this, but we are, I am teaching a 4-week practical course on this. And this is for, if you want your shelter to have one person that's like the train the trainer, or 2 people that can do train the trainer. This is what this course is for. It's a bit of a commitment. It does have a cost to it because this stuff has a cost for us. But check it out, and we'll share the links in the chat. We won't talk much more about it today, but the need is so great for this stuff, and I think the time is now. So if it's something you're interested in too, we may have a couple of funded spots as well. So please fill out the form if you're interested, and we'll share all of that. Okay. I'm gonna unshare for a minute and check out the chat. Okay, so Eliza is not Kristen Hassen. Eliza is Eliza, but she's on here as me just because of how we did the webinar. So I'm just seeing that. Okay. What do we have in the chat? So do we have anybody have questions that they want to put in the chat from what I shared so far before I move into oh, I see, we're using Q&A. Okay. What platform do you use for the visuals? I just ChatGPT. So some of the integrations are great, but I think people need to learn how to use the LLMs first, and ChatGPT's visuals are just great. And now with DALL-E, you don't have to, when you're in ChatGPT, you can just prompt ChatGPT directly. Any other questions? I'm gonna keep going if nobody has any. Okay. Great.
We just got one more in the Q&A section. Actually, you got a couple more coming in.
Will you read them for me, Eliza?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first one is, have you used it for analyzing data, looking for trends, etc.?
Yes. A lot, and I used it a lot in the beginning for this, and it is amazing. I talked about this the first time I taught the webinar, and I should have had a slide on it, but it can find trends and insights in your data that you won't see otherwise. So my favorite thing to do with it is to have it look at the data in different ways than we're already looking at it. So for instance, I can upload a simple spreadsheet of intakes and outcomes with the information directly from Chameleon or another platform. And I can ask it to find trends or changes over the years that we may not have seen, and it will do that. It isn't always right. I think for very specific calculations, there are some things that you need to know, which we're going to talk about in one of the sessions. It's not great with Excel documents unless they're really simple, but it's getting better and better. And so with a little bit more knowledge, using it for data, I think is going to teach us things about animal welfare that we need to understand more. Like one of the things I was doing with it the other day is helping to look at, depending on the color and age of the dog that comes in, and I'm looking at large dogs, is that impacting length of stay? Questions like that matter more and more, that we can kind of hone in on who's getting stuck the longest and what those attributes may be. In the data that I'm looking at, healthy is getting stuck longer than unhealthy, which kind of makes sense when you think about it, but it has some implications.
So there are a couple of comments and questions in the chat specifically related to data. So if you'd like to answer those first, then I can move back into the Q&A. But first, how do you upload the data?
Well, it depends. One easy thing to do is to just upload images of your spreadsheet. So like if you're just getting started and you have a spreadsheet, if you can upload the image file, now you can download the whole file and upload it. But it really depends on how your data is. If you're like, let's say you're taking a crystal report, you can just screenshot that crystal report and put it right in. You can even have handwritten data and put that in, and it'll analyze that as well. So it kind of depends on what you're starting with. One of the things I will say that I think is the biggest limitation for animal welfare right now is that we have so much garbage, and it really is, it's still garbage in, garbage out. So if your data isn't cleaned up, if you don't have address information, or if all your animals are coming in and the reason for intake is unknown, it can't help you overcome that. So we still have to have good data. One of the things I'm so excited about, I had a meeting with volunteers last night, and they were talking about documentation and how we're entering data, how we're documenting. And so I was working with ChatGPT and Claude this morning on creating a guideline for animal shelter workers on how to enter data and how to be documenting objectively and neutrally. And it was so helpful getting that, because I can say, you be a data analyst, explain this to a layperson audience how to do this, and it does a great job. So we can also improve inputs into data using AI, which then will help us on the back end.
And Daisy made a mention that that helped identify creative ways to find trends. I think that's really important. We have a data person on our team who is obsessed with using AI to find creative ways to look at data. So I think that it's just getting better and better. And then the next question from Kim related to data was, can AI summarize studies and data on multiple shelter reunification efforts?
On multiple shelter. Kim, can you just maybe, I'm not entirely sure I understand your question. We're gonna go into ChatGPT actually.
And while, Kim, you're providing some extra context, I wanted to answer a question that came into our Q&A, that the deck will be emailed out, so will the recording, and you can absolutely share this with others at your organizations. That'll be fine.
Okay, I'm gonna share my screen again, and I should be sharing ChatGPT. Am I sharing ChatGPT?
Yes, you are.
Okay, great. Okay, so we're in ChatGPT now. This is a great one to start with. It really is a good all-around model. I learned on ChatGPT because it's so easy to use. So I'm just gonna go through a few of the basics, but up here, remember I was talking about the model and what model you're using. So for today, I would just say that starting with the 4.0 is wonderful, but if you're looking at more complex problems, you need it to do strategy or reasoning for you. The 03 model is better. And if you are writing and you're like, I was writing this morning, I was trying to write a case for why I have this model of animal sheltering that I call the balanced priorities model. It's the most boring name ever, but it basically is like balancing all the things we have to do for pets and people. And so I was asking it, like I used 4.5 because I was trying to make a case to government officials about why this model makes sense. And so it helped me kind of explore how to write that in a way that was most effective. But if you never change these for now, it's okay. Starting with 4 is fine. But as you get a little bit more advanced, it's really fun to play around with these. Okay, so I want to show you just a couple of things that I was working on. Oh, here's my balanced priorities model. So I upload a little presentation and I said this is the PowerPoint. And so I asked for it to help describe that balanced priorities model. And so it gave me this great explanation of it, like why we need a new approach. It was really well worded. It was totally true. What are the tenets? It explained those really well. But then what surprised me is that I asked it, how can we convince government leaders this is the right model? And what was really fascinating is that it did a great job at this. So it said, lead with outcomes they already track. Brilliant. So it talks about so what is the metric, how the model moves it, and what is the real world proof. So it gave us real life examples that have citations for what you can share. It said to translate each of the pillars into a policy or budget line, also brilliant. It talked about the use of storytelling. It talked about who can champion the idea and what they need to champion it. And this is like a blueprint for selling an idea to government leaders that have a lot of different priorities. It talks about anticipating pushback. So a government leader may say we can't restrict intake. Diversion sounds like we're turning pets away, which we do hear a lot. We don't have the staff to do this. And so it gives you responses to those. And I'm not saying I necessarily agree with some of this, but it's doing this work to lay out a case. And then it shows how to sort of close the ask. I had never imagined it would come up with all of this. My challenge now is it gives me so much. I have to have the time to kind of then work with what it's giving me back. Yeah, so I want to just see if there's a few others. Oh yeah, so this one I had asked it. Is this the cat? Yeah, so this is one I was telling you about that I love doing for shelter pets. Make this cat into a vintage cartoon. It's just a cat. You can mess with this and make this something that goes on an animal's kennel. That's a fun way to use it. But I really use ChatGPT for everything. This is where I was asking for this one. I was asking for a guide on how to document. And it does that for me. So I'm asking for how you document medical and behavior problems, and it gives me this entire guide. I asked it to base it off of how social workers document, and it's really amazing. Like we'll be able to take this and actually turn this into a protocol pretty quickly. So you're in ChatGPT, and I want you to be thinking now, if anybody has something they'd like me to use as an example, if there's either a document you'd like help with or a problem you'd like to solve, we can walk through a couple of these in the time we have left. But there's also here, these are these different integrations. These are different GPTs within ChatGPT. You don't even need to mess with these. Like you can, but I wouldn't do that until you get really familiar with what the different models can do. This stuff's all kind of confusing when you first look at it. So if you stick with your simple model, that model can do most anything. These will do different things, but the work product for me often is worse. Like I've done logo creation with the logo creator GPT and it was not good. And I don't know why, I probably just don't know how to use it well, but you don't really even need to mess with these. And then this is where it tracks your chats. These do go away after a while. So you want to make sure to save what you want. But like, oh yeah, I was looking at, gosh, I asked it to, this is my dog Nani, up here in the corner. And so I just said, hey, can you create a logo based on a Nani? And like, I don't love this logo, I'm probably not going to use it, but it did a fairly good job. It could form the foundation for the logo that I could then work with that within AI and potentially with the designer. So that's ChatGPT. Eliza, does anybody have things they want us to look at?
We do have one person that wants us to look at something, and Grayson, I see your chat. So if there is a document that you're willing to either share in the chat, or just drop in the chat as an attachment, we can look at that. I think that would be absolutely fine. And in the meantime, I had a question for you, Kristen, which is from Lori, and she says you may have covered this, which I don't think we did, but they've experienced some pushback from shelter staff about using AI, especially smaller shelters, and they were wondering if you had any pushback from shelters you've worked on about this.
Is the pushback about privacy?
Yeah, Lori, if you'd like to provide any additional context, we can certainly answer that. But have you received any pushback in general, Kristen, that you'd like to share about?
No, but I think people are scared of it and not using it. So let's ask it. That's a great question to ask AI. So we're in Claude now. I'm gonna say, and so with Claude, it's the same deal. We're in 3.7, which is their main model that you get if you're a paid user. So I'm in their 3.7 model. It's really similar. And I'm saying I'm trying to help animal shelters use AI for basic tasks, but I'm getting pushback due to privacy concerns and other fears. Can you help me write the case for why animal shelters? And this is how you should use AI. To start using it, you should use AI. And let's see what we get. So this gives us a bunch of reasons for why animal shelters should use AI: improved animal care and outcomes, resource optimization, enhanced community engagement. It explains why. It talks about some of the concerns. So privacy concerns, it
Hey,
explains.
Kristen, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but it looks like your screen is not sharing your updated.
Oh, it's because I went to Claude, so I'll share again. Sorry about that, you guys. Okay, this should be on Claude now. Yeah.
This is on Claude now, yes.
Okay, sorry about that, you guys. So basically, like, so we have, I just asked Claude for help. It gives me why it's beneficial. It addresses common concerns. So if there's a specific concern, putting that in, like, I love to do this when shelter workers tell me no to something, when they're like, no, we can't do that, because I like to work with AI to help me with that. But that's a great question to ask it. And I heard there was another question about that I want to get to about what did Kim ask specifically? Because I want to do that one in Claude.
So Kim's question was about comparing data from multiple shelters across the US regarding reunification.
Okay, so animal shelters, let's let it do that regarding pet reunification. So if I ask it for that, the problem is going to be that if we don't have good data on that somewhere, it has nothing to pull from. So right now you can see it's searching the web. So it is going to do what we would do, but way, way, way faster. And it's looking at this, so it's gonna try to find references for this, and that's great. We want it to be referencing real data, and we'll see what we get back. You can see it thinking right now. Okay, so it's giving us a lot of information. But what you need to be aware of is if that information is based on things that on the internet that aren't like actual research, they're just like opinions, then some of this may not be true. It is giving us statistics, so giving us a lot of information, and when I look at what it's citing, it's giving us references for everything. It's citing ASPCA, Shelter Animals Count Best Friends, Frontiers in Veterinary Science, AWA, ASPCA Pro. So it's tagging a lot of sources. The problem that you'll find is that those sources are all going to say something slightly different. And so you have to really know exactly where the information is coming from and know that whether it's correct will be questionable, because in animal welfare, we're not really, we're not doing a very good job of being consistent across the movement. So that is a real challenge. We have to have good data going in. If we're asking AI things that are based on, like if you asked AI to write you a statement on why it's unsafe to adopt out black cats at Halloween, it would write you a whole thing, because it would just be pulling from the internet. That doesn't necessarily mean that's the right thing to do. So that's one caution. We need to get better at what we're inputting so that it has something to pull from. Gosh, I can't believe we're out of time. This is such a bummer.
So Grayson did send you a file, so we may be able to just respond directly to that request about making it more marketable. And if we have just half a second, Lori clarified the concern from staff is about using it to take photos of observation boards and type them up for person or adoption profile write-ups.
So what I would say is that if the concern is about creating a public record, then you're creating a public record when you take the picture. That's true. If it has people's personal information on it, like if it has the owner's name, that's something to be cautious about. If it's just pet bios or information about the pet, that's public information. So if it's public information, there shouldn't really be a concern. If it is protected by HIPAA or something else, then I would be concerned. But no, I haven't run into very much pushback. I think shelters are so busy, they're not realizing how much time it can save them. And the course that I'm teaching is really geared towards getting everybody everything they need to really use it to save time and money, because we're all too busy. And right now, if AI never got any better, it could streamline probably half of what we do and allow our staff and our volunteers to focus on the real work they're needed. I am so tired of seeing shelter staff sit in their office all day. We have the ability now with AI to get them out of their offices and with the animals, and that's where they need to be. So I'm really excited about it, and I hope it helps, and I'll keep teaching these free webinars just to get access to this stuff to as many people as possible. But I want to thank you all so much for coming. There's so much more we could have talked about today, but you have my email. You can reach out anytime, and we're going to keep updating you as we learn more. And if you learn cool things about AI, please send them to me, because we're all learning from each other right now. I'm really kind of excited to see what I can learn from you all. And if you do something cool with AI after this webinar, please send it to me, because I would love to check it out. And what we're doing a whole series of webinars this summer. Our next one is going to be partly about AI, and it's by our very own Katie Grissom, talking about making amazing social media videos. But we have webinars going on through the summer. So it's Outcomes for Pets. And if you subscribe to the newsletter, you'll get all the information. But thank you all for coming, and good luck and have fun out there.